Hey everybody, this is your servant, Pastor Paul. I hope this is working. I'll be so upset. Order. Here we go. There we go. Hey everyone, this is your servant, Pastor Paul Graham. I am. How do I usually say it? I'm up. I'm alive, and I'm well. We are excited about a part 2 of uh, of Unscripted. When last week we had the wonderful opportunity to talk about men and mental health, and it's just so surprising how so many people really discount the fact that men go through so much. And so I'm going to ask you at this time that maybe you share with others, share with friends, share with your enemies. But I have the awesome opportunity of having great co-hosts on with me. And so I'm going to bring up Sade, where? Let me see where this girl is. Red lips. There we go. Red lips. There we go. Hey, good to see. We haven't seen you in like 2 rounds. I think 2 rounds.
Yeah. I was studying. I'm considering pursuing another degree. So, I mean, can I be great?
Yes, you can be great. Yes. But there's even more. But I'm going to talk a little bit about that afterwards. Also, some of the things I'm seeing that you're doing. I'm following you, of course. I'm following you. So I'm watching some of the things you're doing. And then I'm going to bring up Mina. She's now the great orator.
I'm not laughing.
I mean, we can't even pay for her soon for her speaking engagements now.
Y'all better cut that out.
I'm just saying, you look up, you speaking, I'm really proud of you, for real. I'm proud of you.
Look, I'm just trying to walk along greatness.
Oh, wait, that
I learned about clocking the T.
Clock it.
My niece does it every time I say something, so I think it's a good thing.
Do that again.
You clock the T.
Yes.
Don't know you. It's all right.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can't do that. I got you. It's so good to see you guys. I don't know where everybody else is.
Yeah.
But Pat hit me up and Pat said, I'm in, Paul. I'm in. Okay. So I'm looking forward to seeing him jump on with us tonight, especially concerning mental health. So for those who are on right now, I see the numbers are jumping. We're going to ask you to just share this with others. Tonight, we're going to get into just a little bit a chat concerning what we talked about last week. Wait a second. So, I'm not alone.
Hey!
What's up, everybody?
I told you, I'm just trying to walk along greatness. Like, this is it.
I don't know what you're talking about. But
is that so?
I appreciate it. What's happening, everybody? It's good to see y'all, man.
We good.
How you been?
Not too bad. Yeah.
Okay.
Not too bad. God is good. I'm still kicking and pushing.
I gotta say this, man. I love your mic, man. Your mic just sounds like we're all weird and you're not.
But don't you guys have the same?
You got the same mic, brother.
Or maybe I'm doing something wrong. You know what I'm saying? Whoa, wait a second. Listen, I was talking to somebody today about and this person was from England. I was talking to this person today and she was mentioning Leah. So it was funny because she was trying to go, okay, this person is this person is that, this person. She reached Leah and she was like, she's like street, but knowledgeable. And you got to hear it in her English accent. It was just so funny. She's like street, street, but knowledgeable. I'm like, come on, you got to be serious. So, Leah, how you doing, girl?
I'm good. How are you?
What happened? What?
No, I mean the intro. I mean, I love it because she was kind of like on point.
Knowledgeable street. What's this?
It's that Detroit, that thuggish bone.
Oh no, not the thuggish.
Man, I got to tell you, man, what's so funny is that I want to ask the question: can anything good come out of Detroit?
Yeah, here she is. She
Yeah,
showed
yeah,
up
yeah.
right on time.
So, Ali, man, I know I hit you at the last moment, man, but it's so good to see you, brother.
Man, it's good to see you too, man. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
You and PG. It's good stuff. The double nickel. That's what's up.
Oh, vintage.
That's
Ace.
what's
Yeah,
up.
yeah. Somebody like Sade don't know nothing about 1970. You weren't even an embryo. You weren't even thought of.
Even a thought.
Don't do that to my
A
girl.
twinkle.
I'm just saying. In 1970,
She
when were
gonna
you
be
born?
home for another
85?
2 weeks.
I was born 86.
Wow, I remember 86. That's when the Mets won the World Series. Okay,
That's what's up.
Oh, okay. That's also the year. That's the only thing that matters.
I was 16, which means
Jesus is good.
okay, good.
Hey,
So,
they say it's just beginning in your 50s, man. It's just getting started. So
yeah, I get it. I
So
get
that
it.
means Ali, he's 5 years old.
hey, that's right. It's just getting started. It's a lot more work to be done.
5 years old. I remember 5 years old. I really liked applesauce.
Here we go.
So
You know what? I was looking at Gary's pictures of you and Pat, and I was like, "Oh, look at them, the babies." It was cute. It was.
man. So Ali, I want to let me put it this way, Mina. Why don't you catch Ali up with what we talked about last week and Sade, just a little bit about what we talked about last week, and let's jump into this. Let's jump right into it.
Son, you don't know about perimenopause? We don't remember nothing past yesterday.
As much conversations that we've had on that one, you would think.
We were landing the plane, and then it went right back up again on perimenopause.
No, we talked about men's mental health.
Okay.
Okay.
You just left it right there. Did we? Yes, did we? Somebody already talking about. Look at that. So you got 100 on that one for perimenopause. I'm wondering, man.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it for the next couple of years. Okay.
It is a great alibi.
Wow. Mina, why? Perry.
Why?
That's it. Just your answer, Perry.
Right. Exactly.
Gotcha.
No, but seriously though, I'm consistently in a brain fog, and I just can't. Like, I literally have to pause and think to remember certain things. And
you mean while you were sitting there talking about that, I was sitting here and I was like, okay, if women go through that, right? We go through perimenopause, menopause, all these hormonal changes. Do men not experience hormonal shifts at a certain age that we just don't know what it looks like or how to identify it? Like, there's no name for it. Like, we've called it a midlife crisis, right?
Right. Yeah.
There is a name for it. It's called andropause.
Really?
Really?
Wait, how do you spell that?
Whoa.
A-N. I think just how it sounds. A-N-D-R-O pause. One word.
Wow. I have never heard that before.
I've never heard it before either.
Yeah.
Ali, say it again. Andropause.
Andropause.
It is the male menopause.
Yeah.
Are you reading that? Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
There's a
Called
gradual.
andropause.
Yeah, it's specifically a gradual decline in testosterone levels, typically starting around the age of 40 and progressing with age.
Yep.
Mood swings, decreased motivation, lack of focus,
I cannot stand you.
Yes.
muscle loss.
Yep.
There's a blood test that you can take to measure your testosterone levels, and then those results you and your doctor can kind of talk about if this applies to you.
Yep.
Wow.
So Ali.
So here's the thing. Here's what's interesting, right? You're talking about men's mental health, right?
Yeah.
So for some individuals, for some men who are just kind of going through this, older guys who are going through this period of time where they're just like, man, I don't even know what's going on right now. It could be that.
Man.
It very well could be that, and just doing certain things, checking the testosterone, taking certain supplements, just talking to your doctor and that kind of thing could bring you. I'm not saying everybody falls in that category, but there are some people who may just be unsure about, man, I'm in this funk right now. Could be that.
That could be it.
Could it be? I'm not trying to be funny. Like sometimes, well, like you want to cry about nothing. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So the image that I just saw said that both men and women experience, while women are going through menopause and men are going through andropause, depression is a common thing across both. Mood swings, fatigue, insomnia, and it's just like all of those things. And I just wonder, we just label that as tired or a midlife crisis, but there's something internally going on that has to be addressed.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, and don't forget the emotional disconnection that happens even with intimacy and with the depression and the anxiety. It is the drop also in the cortisones as well.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So this is like a thing. Okay.
The thing. Yeah.
Ali, I've never heard of it. It sounds serious. It made me start mirroring. Like I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Does it make you think?
Hold on, man. What's up, man? What's going on? Why are you laughing at me?
No, just I'm in awe right now.
Let me tell you why. I'll tell you why I even decided to figure out if that was a thing or not. It's
okay.
I'll just speak from my own experience, right? I go through these, and they call them different things. Like I was a musician for all my life, and they say musicians are very up and down with their moods and that kind of thing. So there's things that you can just label. But as I started to get closer to 50 and putting in certain things that were happening in my life, right? I'm jumping out of the corporate space at a ridiculous age, trying to do something that I should have, that 25-year-olds are doing. There's things happening in my family. There's other things going on, right? I found myself like in these, like, just, I guess you could call them funks, right? And I know that there's some anxiety stuff that kind of looms, in the family tree. I know there's some things like that. So I've always been the type of person to kind of follow my dad's example. He just kind of hammered through everything, right? But then there are days where I'm just like, I can't hammer through this. I'm just sitting here at this desk staring at these monitors doing nothing, right? And so because I had to really kind of dig in and learn about what Nisi was going through, I was like, you know what? Let me just see if this applies to guys. You know what I mean? And that's how I was introduced to that. So
where did you get the answer from? Where did you get that from? Did you research it?
I just started Googling and reading different articles and looking at, some health journals and different things like that, and stumbled upon this word andropause, and then just kind of dug into that a little bit more, and just realized like some of the stuff that I experience very well could be that. Now, let me be honest. I haven't done the testing and all of that kind of stuff. I haven't done it, right? So the last physical that I had with my doctor, I didn't even really bring that up.
Okay.
So, Ali, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, I haven't. I'll be honest.
Go to your doctor for them to rule out.
I haven't.
That it was that, right? Versus it potentially being some other things.
And I'm gonna tell you why, Leah. I'm gonna tell you why. I am the quintessential guy. I just don't want to know.
Wow.
I just keep it a buck.
Wow.
I don't want to know.
I won't even pee in a cup.
Now I did all the other stuff. My physical, I did a full physical, checked for everything, all the blood work, all of that. But we didn't talk about that because I was like, But
are we supposed to talk about our mental issue?
Yes.
With our primary.
Your primary
care physician should be, and the reason being is, I'll take me for example. I was dating somebody who was a mental health professional, and he sat me down and he was like, "These past 6 months, it feels like you're bipolar." He was like, I'm not trying to diagnose you. He said, but it's like your mood swings, all of these things. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I went to my primary care physician and I was like, I'm having all of these symptoms. I want to get blood work done. Come to find out, I was drinking soy milk every day. So my estrogen levels were highly spiked, but I was deficient in vitamin D. So vitamin D can appear as depression, and too much estrogen can appear as a manic episode. So it wasn't that I had, now could it, no, I'm not bipolar, but the mood swings were because of what my body was either having too much of or deficient in. And so a lot of times I think we do go to mental health professionals and get the psychological support, but we're missing a step when we're not going to our doctors, primary care physicians, and getting necessary medical tests to ensure that we are not deficient or that we don't have too much of a hormone in our body.
Yeah, that's good. And you said something key, right? You talked about vitamin D. A lot of people are deficient in vitamin D.
And it shows up as depression.
Yes. And I'm not saying this is a cure-all, but I promise you, if you are monitoring your vitamin D levels and getting enough, you will see some differences in how your day and how you operate in your day.
So what does
I can attest to that.
What does
I can attest to that.
What does this have to do with the sun? Because I've heard people say that, you're better when you are in the sun, or the sun does something for you. Is that the same thing?
It is, but there's a significant amount of time you got to stay in the sun in order to get the amount of vitamin D that you really need every day.
And the issue that is present in our culture is that our skin, because of the melanin, it's harder for us to absorb it. So if the normal person not the normal person, if the people that don't look like us have to be out there for 2 hours, we have to double that to get what's necessary. So again, go to your primary care physician and ask questions, because a lot of times we're suffering with things thinking it's all in our mind, but really our bodies are craving. And that's why some people can't get over the hump even with therapy, because it's not just the mind that's struggling, like your body is deficient in something that it needs to survive.
I'm happy.
The ability to be able to take in certain information, right? Like the brain is our processor. And so if there is the void of certain nutrients, right, or a particular chemical composition that's necessary for the body to thrive, or the brain to be able to thrive, in that absence, you will not be able to take that information in as you should, right? It's just the same if a person is taking substances, right? Doing therapy with a person that's inebriated or impaired in their thought process is almost futile, because they're not going to be able to take that information in. So it's similar in the same. But when you spoke of with the seasonal changes, right? They call that SAD, seasonal affective disorder. And it does happen to a lot of individuals where it presents as depression, right? Less sun, more gray, definitely up here in the D. We don't get a whole lot of sun very often. And so, you'll definitely, if you pay attention to yourself and your body and your mood changes or fluctuations, you can see when the summertime comes and the light is out, I go through it, right? I get just energized. I'm motivated. I'm able to do more. When it's gray, it's very easy to kind of find yourself in this slump and not being able to move. And oftentimes there's some correlation with low vitamin D, right? And SAD.
So what does menopause look like? And if you don't mind, what does that look like? I mean, what can it look like when you say low testosterone? When you say low testosterone. Testosterone. Thank you. When you say low, how is that manifested? Okay, why is Terry laughing at me, man? I'm here to learn from y'all, so don't play with me, y'all.
Testosterone, it sounds like gas. Like Exxon. Blow my Exxon. Testosterone, man. Testosterone.
Okay. Testosterone.
Yeah.
What does
Tyrone, better call him.
Tyrone? What is that? How does that manifest? I don't know how it manifests.
It's a natural progression. So the same way your hormones change for women as we get older, we drop estrogen levels. It's just what happens. So what happens for men, based off of what I've read in the last 10 minutes, is the same thing, is that there's a drop in testosterone that happens naturally over time. And you can get shots, you can get testosterone shots if you need more testosterone. But again,
hormone replacement.
Hormone
You
replacement.
can get Rougier, you can get what's some other things you see all over there, them pills and all of that kind of stuff.
Hims.
But can I add for women though, when you're talking about menopause, and this is something I didn't know, that hormone replacement is horse urine.
Ooh.
Yep.
What?
So what women should do, and I learned this, I went through my
Wait,
experience.
can we just pass over that, Sade?
She just hopped over it.
Let me
I
tell you why.
threw it out there so women would be aware, right? Because we put a lot of things in our bodies because we're trying to relieve the symptoms that are bringing a measure of discomfort. I went to a naturopathic.
Don't forget what you're saying, Sade. Don't forget what you're saying. Go ahead.
Yeah, but we were informed at that time is that literally the hormone replacements, right? The pill, all of that sort of stuff is horse urine. So what we're ingesting to try to balance out our hormonal imbalances.
I just found out from my wife too that some HRT drugs are also linked to strokes.
Yes.
So you gotta be aware of that as well.
And for women of color, and what a lot of people don't realize is when they test certain drugs, they don't test them on everybody. And there are things that are naturally within our makeup that have a natural reaction that is not positive. When I heard the horse urine, because that is something I was studying, because I was like, why? There's something in their urine that binds with the estrogen that's already in our body to make it populate and get more. And soy does the same thing. There's no money. And I mean, it is what it is. The medical profession is what it is, but there's no money in telling you to, hey, go drink soy milk or start eating tofu or soy-based products, because it naturally boosts your estrogen levels as well, which is why a lot of men were struggling because their estrogen levels were high when that whole soy milk craze first came out. And that's why almond milk was developed, was because men were having a rise in their estrogen levels because of how much soy milk they were consuming. So, I mean, it's all.
See, Paul, this is what I was saying to you. I just want to be amongst greatness, right? Like,
Man, sis.
I mean, the knowledge that is being dropped today.
Jeez.
No.
And
we have to be mindful about soy as well, because that's also linked to cancer, right? Yes.
Yeah.
That's why all these Adventists, I'm not trying to be funny.
Oh, Adventist pastors, right? That's preaching and teaching
correct.
this.
You're absolutely correct. It's not as good for us as it's been.
So here's the thing. Okay, all of that Worthington and everybody running to the as we called it when I was coming up, the Book and Bible House. Y'all knew faithful Adventists call it the ABC bookstore. Okay. And so the deal is, when you're going over there getting all of that food, it is loaded with sodium. And what Adventist people didn't realize is this was just a transition food. It was not to be eaten every day, but at every meal it's being prepared. You see what I'm saying? If you heavily into that thing. And so the bottom line is, everything that we eat now, nothing's safe. Everybody's talking about GMOs like it's a new thing. We were eating GMOs growing up. If you look at corn ain't that big. Corn is about this big and it's purple. But they make it yellow and it's created in labs. And so you get seeds thinking you're getting actual corn. It's not. It's been modified. There's a movie that came out years ago, 1972. You can see it now. Download Soylent Green. Soylent Green with Charlton Heston. You know, Moses, let my people go. Yeah. Soylent Green. I'm not going to even tell you what it's about.
Tell us what it's about, man. If it's from 1972, if we missed it, we missed it.
Soylent Green, what they found out, they actually, when they showed the movie, it was actually 20-something. I think we're past that year now. And it looked very bad. The world was bad. Of course, the wealthy people were controlling everything. And what they found out was Soylent Green was actually people.
All right, we're gonna have to watch this joint.
They were feeding people.
They were feeding people.
Yep.
All right, man.
Isn't that like what? Life imitating art? Look at where we are now. Look at where we are now. Soylent Green, as he says in the end, it's people. It's people. And everybody was filling up on Soylent Green, and it was actually people. Forget you, Heather. You probably got some Soylent Green in your basement.
And the reason why I think a lot of times the reason why I got into the food that we eat and all of the things is because when you work at a school and you see children who are so dysregulated and you can't really figure out what's happening. And we want to talk about environment. We want to talk about all of these different things. But I literally read a research paper and I tried it with one of my parents. I had a child who was diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder. I said, Mom, let's try it. Let's go vegetarian, no processed food, and let's take soy out of his diet, replace it with almond milk. I promise you in 8 weeks, he was a totally different child.
Wow. So what about men? I'm going to put it this way. Do you think that a lot of us as men, a lot of our actions, reactions, responses, or what have you, come from how we eat or anything like that? I mean, is there some kind of correlation to it? It's just a thought, maybe not, but what are your thoughts?
I think everything we consume.
I'm sorry.
I think everything we consume contributes to how we react and how we respond to things.
Okay.
What I always tell people is, if you look at young kids today, they look grown. And I always say the hormones that they put into these chickens and these cows do not die when they are on your plate. And so we are taking in hormones that are not made for us, and they are literally altering our brain chemistry. They're altering our whole makeup, because that's why you have people who have rage and anger and all, because these are hormones that are put into animals that you are now consuming. And veggies aren't even safe anymore. So it's just like, if you don't grow your own food, you're just taking a risk at it all.
I want to put this out there real quick, Ali, because you brought us to a place where I think that we need to stay on for a little bit. And I'm talking about the andropause. I'm going to tell you right now, stunned to listen to what you said. I would love to know if we are suffering. A lot of us are suffering from this. I don't want to use the word suffer, but dealing with this, and we don't know it. When we talk about midlife crisis, right? A man will go out there and buy this car, or he would, I'm going to say this, right? He would cheat on his wife, or he would try to, and let me be clear. When I say cheat on his wife, he's cheating with someone younger. Oh, you understand where I'm coming from? So I don't want to just say that he's this animalistic individual, but he buys a sports car. All right, you understand where I'm coming from? Dresses differently. I want to be careful when I say out of his age. Does this have a lot to do with testosterone also? I'm just asking the question. I'm just putting it out there. Ali, first of all.
I feel like anything's possible. I mean, I pulled up something, right? Just so while you were talking, I was like, let me just see what are some of the symptoms, right? So you got everything from reduced sex drive and erectile dysfunction, loss of muscle mass. Somebody was telling me the other day that, like, it's crucial at my age that I should be lifting weights, which I'm doing now, right?
I heard that.
Yeah, it's crucial because bone density, that kind of thing, right? Then you got, I read you got guys who have hot flashes and night sweats. and I've had them. I didn't chalk it up to that. I just chalked it up to it was too hot
in the room.
You know, it's just too hot, right? Changes in body composition, reduced testicle size, reduced semen volume, depression and mood swings, concentration and memory problems, decreased sense of well-being, and the list goes on and on and on and on.
Can
So to
I
answer
add?
the question, yes,
I didn't know.
it was possible.
So to add to that, your question, looking at the reduction of testosterone and the desire, right, for a fast car or, you know, having a new, fresh, young thing, a lot of men engage in thrill-seeking behaviors.
You said thrill-seeking behaviors.
Thrill-seeking behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in that, it is going to release certain chemicals in the body, right? Such as, you know, dopamine, right? That's where we kind of get, you know, that good dope from, right? But the body emits that. Adrenaline, right? That energy to be able to go. It also, thrill-seeking behavior increases testosterone levels. So if you want to build in a possible correlation of engaging in thrill-seeking behaviors, it's because it's emitting, right, these chemicals in the body that makes you feel alive again, makes you feel young again.
Well, doesn't sex do that for you?
I'm sorry?
Doesn't sex do that for you?
It all depends on who you have sex
Yeah.
with, but go ahead,
So
Chief.
let me say this, okay? Because I don't want us to get stuck on the andropause thing. When we're talking about midlife crisis, you know, we all been there. You know what I'm saying? You want to feel like you still got it. You see what I'm saying? You want to feel like you can still, you know, you the man, whatever the case may be. And so a lot of that, as Leo's saying, we lean towards that. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna get me buy me a Ferrari. I always wanted a Ferrari. Now I ain't got no kids no more. I'm gonna go ahead and spend my money. I'm gonna do whatever because I've been sacrificing my whole, life, marriage, or whatever the case may be. So you get to that point. It's just like women, you want to feel young. So let me go over here and let me get my boobs lifted. Let me go ahead and get my face pulled up. Let me do, nobody wants, when we're young, we want to be old. When we're old, we want to be young. It's like when we be cold, when we cold, we want to be hot. And so a lot of that doesn't have to do with andropause. It could be, like Oliver said, anything can contribute to that. But, it's like, hey, I want to be able to go out and play ball like I used to. Oliver went to Andrews, know what I can do. Okay. But the deal is, man, I can barely shoot a three like I used to be. Like, dang,
My joint can't even extend.
Right. And so, we want that back. And so you start looking at, different things, guys always talking about women, putting on weaving hair. Hey, we be going out there trying to save ours too, and so let's not forget.
It is a lot of that black hairspray going on. Stop it.
So, it's when you use it and you look like a brand new pair of patent leather shoes, that's the thing.
But I think if we minimize andropause and say, well, it could be, right? I think that's also minimizing men's mental health because they're linked together. A man who just all of a sudden has this deep need to prove to himself that he's a man could be part of just his psychological progression. But again, last week y'all talked about safe places. Black men do not go to the doctor. It's just, and if they do, like Ali said, I'm not going to bring up issues. I'm just going to make sure I'm good. And so when we do that, we don't even give ourselves the opportunity to understand what's going on. Because it could just be I'm having a midlife crisis, or it could be I'm going through a hormonal change that if I do not address it, it will never be dealt with. Menopause is something everybody talks about. I never heard of andropause until today.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you this. What is it when a young man want to be an older man? Is it a psychological thing? Is it a mental health thing? When you want to go out there, you want to conquer all of these women at a young age? Is that a mental health thing too? Or what word do we use when it's that? I'm saying when I talk about andropause, what I'm saying is like everything is not that. Matter of fact, everything is not even mental health. Everybody's throwing out the term narcissist, ADHD, all these different terms. All of that is not. Everything is not mental health. But we jump on this stuff and we rock with it and we ride with it. I'm speaking as a man. I remember when y'all were talking about estrogen, I got shut down. So I'm saying as a man, I know. Okay, as a man, I know everything ain't what it appears. I'm not saying that we don't need to consider andropause because that's kind of new to the game. You know what I'm saying? It's been out there for a little bit, but now everybody's learning about it. Like you said, you just heard about that. I heard about andropause a long time ago. Okay, but everybody needs to, there's always something that in the mental health field or the medical field that they try to attach something to it so people will, know or have a word for it. Oh, this is what it is. This is what it is. Is it?
I think though it's important to name things, right? And so while this may not be the case for everyone, this show, at least the way I look at it, is about bringing awareness to certain things, right?
Okay.
We talked about if you think this is it, then there's different testing that you can do to see it. Like this is not a folk tale. This is theory, right? Because if you have low whatever, there are tests that you can take to prove whether that is true or not. So I get what you're saying, Terry, because as a mental health clinician, I cringe when I hear certain things because it's like we put it out there and then people bite on it. Not we, meaning this group, just in general, people bite on it and it's like, oh, then that must be what I have. And so it's like, wait, there are different levels before we even come to that conclusion. So let's start at the basic and work our way up.
Gosh,
That's why I said let's rule out. You got to rule it out.
Yeah. Right. And so that's why I cringe when people, there's a cup that I have in my office that said, so your Google doctor told you what? You know what I'm saying? It's just like, so you going to Google to get this information? Okay, well, tell me how that worked out for you. Because you start looking at the symptoms. Okay, and I think I talked about this before. You can write all the symptoms down of several different mental health disorders, and you won't even know which one that is, because they almost all sound the same.
But I do, Terry. It's not even a but. I do agree with Mina when I feel like I want something to be identified. Mm-hmm. I kind of want to say, so what do I need to do for that? Or what do I need to do for that? What are my options for certain things? Because, certain things can happen in my life, certain things happen in a man's life. And I'm going to give you one strong example. A former pastor of mine sent me something that said that promiscuity is a byproduct of ADHD. Let me just pause there. Has anybody ever heard that before?
I have.
Yeah, I just have tonight.
Okay. You mean what I just said, or you heard it before?
I've heard it before. Just said it. I've never heard that before.
Ever. That's why my reaction was.
And I worked at a children's hospital. These kids were not having sex, but they all had ADHD.
Well, they said in the age of a certain, when men reach a certain age and their ADHD has not been diagnosed or taken care of or anything, it manifests. Even for women, it manifests.
They say it's associated with a dopamine rush or chasing the dopamine to initiate that dopamine. Yeah.
So that was the thrill seeking that I was talking about. It doesn't necessarily have to be associated with ADHD. And a lot of times that people are getting that particular diagnosis, as Terry was saying, they're just looking at symptoms and depending on, right, there's biases that kind of like are infused in diagnosing people.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And so young black men get diagnosed at a higher rate of ADHD. And a lot of times you're not looking at it through the proper lens. It really could be PTSD. Right.
Well, here's the other thing.
Trauma.
Let me say
often misdiagnosed. Yeah.
Go ahead. So let me say this. I'm not saying, Paul, that we should name it. What I'm saying is, it isn't always what we think it is.
I hear you.
You know what I'm saying? That's my point. It's not always that. So yeah, go ahead and name it. If it's that, it's that. But you know, it's not always that.
I think that's why it's important.
I've been doing this too. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Oliver. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that's why it's important to make sure that even in the research that we're doing, that we're actually going to a professional, getting the test, because because there's value in both sides. Whereas there's value in being able to name something and put a name to something, but then we see individuals who are quick to name something as a reason to excuse their behavior.
Ooh, mercy.
Which is what we talked about last week.
That's what we did.
We talked about that last week, because what do you do when somebody pulls that label out from underneath you, right? We were talking about, maybe, was it last week?
Yeah.
I know we were talking about menopause, and I asked the question, what do you do when you find out that your woman isn't dealing with menopause? She's just dealing with something else, right?
Yeah, and so here's the other thing. I'm sorry. Here's the other thing too, Leah. That's exactly where I was going with this, Oliver. The thing is, you know how many people have come to me, and not in my domestic violence class, but my anger management classes, and this is what I hear a lot. Well, they, you know, all my life I've been told I got anger management problems.
Got anger issues. I
got anger issues. I'm like, what? And so you decided to ride with that? So is that what it was? It was anger, or was it some traumatic incident that happened, or did something else happen? And you were like, you were raised in a household where there was really no supervision, so you kind of got what you wanted. You pouted, and you got an anger problem. And so next thing you know, here it is, you got an anger problem. Really? Is that what you got, or is it something else? Is it you just lack supervision growing up?
Well, I also think this is one of the reasons why I am a huge advocate for being very cautious about labeling children, because once the label is applied, I treat you like your label. Right? So if I have a 7-year-old boy coming to my school and they say, oh, he has oppositional defiant disorder, I'm going to look at him through the lens of everything he does is because of this, right? And if everybody treats you as if you have this issue, whether it's right or wrong, and you never have somebody say, I don't care what your diagnosis is. When you come in this classroom, this is what we're going to do. People who challenge you and put your feet to the fire and say, your diagnosis does not excuse your behavior. You have to have medication and therapy. If you do not have people who are calling you to the fire, even as a child, then yes, it's going to manifest itself, because this is what you've been allowed to do for 18, 19 years. So now you say, this is my label. You take that label on as your own.
Okay, so if I'm going out there and I'm, and I'm cheating and I'm messing around and I'm doing so and so, this, that, and the other, could it come from trauma?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Give me an example, Leah. Give me a quick example. You or me, Mina. Give me an example. If for me to do this, that, and the other outside, I'm just saying, whether it's outside of my marriage, whether I'm single and I'm acting up or so, whatever, give me an example of something in the past that can cause you to do that.
So just simply looking at early childhood experiences, right? There's something that's called the ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experience Study. And they're looking at between the ages of 0 and 18 years of age, about 10 different things, right? And of course, that's just a snapshot is how I see it into a person's life. And so it could be a plethora of things, but let's just say arbitrarily one. An individual could have been sexually assaulted at a very young age.
Okay.
Right? And so they could then actually reenact in certain spaces with other individuals, right?
Yeah.
And so that hypersexuality, right, I often say it's a language, right? The first language that children know is what? Sade, play, right? It's an action, it's movement, right? I was looking at, actually, I was teasing my daughter. My grandbaby was over, and she loves Elmo and she loves Miss Rachel. She just turned 2.
Wow.
Right? And so Elmo and Miss Rachel had a moment. They was kissing each other. I said, oh, hold on, wait a minute. Right? And I'm joking, right? And I'm looking at this measure of expression. She knows that when we have Melmo, I said, give Melmo a hug, right? Give Melmo a kiss. Melmo said, mwah, right? And so now she has something else that's cherished in that moment, and she's making them 2 kiss. She's reenacting things that she's learned very young.
Yes.
Right? And so it's very much possible that these things can actually take place in real time, right? Because you don't necessarily have the language to what was happening to you very early on. You have no words to put towards that thing.
Yes.
Right? You're just behaving. So whenever I teach or I train or do things of that nature, we're looking at trauma, I always say we need to look beyond the behavior because there is a story that's motivating what it is that you see. And I'll just stop there.
And
So can I just jump?
Mine is quick. We also have to understand that trauma doesn't necessarily have to be done to me in order for me to experience it.
Okay.
You have children who grow up in houses with domestic violence, and there's research actually being done right now on if a child's social economic status influences trauma. You have to struggle your whole life. Like everything is a struggle. Every meal is a struggle. What does that do to the brain's chemistry, and how does it change how I perceive the world and then how I interact with the world? And these things are happening. And I've always said, if I ever had a school, it would be for all boys, and they will not learn until the 2nd grade because we have to give them the space to figure out what does learning look like for me. School is made for girls. We place boys into these settings with trauma already outside of the school setting, and then we inflict more trauma on them inside of the school setting. We are literally brewing an explosion that may not happen until he's 50, and now all of a sudden he wants a Ferrari.
Okay. So, Mina, please, Mina.
Gosh, I love this topic because this is my thing. This is my wheelhouse. And oftentimes I equate cheating to 2 things. First one I equated to is attachment styles. Second one I equated to is the absence of being seen or just to say under acknowledged or misunderstood, right? And so when we're talking about unresolved trauma, I can't say men is more than women, but let's just use the words just like women. There is an emotional wound that's often there, and it's due to obviously gender expectations around emotional expressions, right? But when we talk about men, we talked so much on this show, maybe last time, about the emotional suppression that men experience and the suppressed vulnerability. And so, I don't know, we can argue the fact that, if a man never learned how to express or to even process pain, he more than likely will cheat to escape any emotional discomfort or even avoid feeling emotionally exposed in his primary relationship.
Okay, let's pause there for a moment. Ali, I know that you deal a lot with relationships. I'm talking about marriage and premarital counseling and marriage issues. Well, she just made this comment. What's your thoughts on a man going into his marriage with trauma and doesn't recognize it? Are you able to recognize it? Or what is the fix, if there is any?
What is the fix? That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
But to answer the other part of that, can I recognize it? I can now because I have read enough and experienced enough to be able to do that. Now, me, Oliver Marcel, because I'm not a clinical professional, when I do recognize that, I'm sending them somewhere else.
Wow.
It doesn't matter how much I've read. It doesn't matter how many certifications I have. I'm not touching that.
Can I just add to what Ali is saying is I want to put this disclaimer out there because there may be people watching that don't know, let's say Armina, right? And when I speak from a clinical lens, I'm not speaking from my shanana, which is my pinky toe or my gut feeling. I'm speaking from research that actually exists. Like, this is what I do. So I am not a man, so I may not experience what men experience, but I've done a lot of research in order to catch a wide net in my private practice so that I am able to counsel different people, not just women or a particular area, if that makes sense. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there so that if anyone is thinking like, how would she know? Or even in this, I'm going to just say applies to Leah or Sade,
Right. That's what you do. I'll say this though, Paul, as it relates to going into a marriage and not recognizing it, right? For a lot of men, like let me speak for myself. There are things that growing up were made to be normal manhood behavior.
Come on now. Come on.
That I took into my marriage only to recognize after I saw it begin to tear things apart, that it was attached to something that was never dealt with.
I got you.
So sometimes we don't recognize it because it's been chalked up to that's just what guys do.
Yeah. Paul,
and sometimes it isn't recognized openly, but it is privately. You know exactly what it is that you've been dealing with, but and I like to say it's the largest because I just see it so much, right, as I engage in trauma work, is avoidant behavior.
Yes.
Avoidance is one of the largest symptoms in trauma.
Yes.
You don't want to see what you know, and so you turn a blind eye to it and you act like it doesn't exist. Well, that is harm being done to self. A lot of times we want to talk about the harm that one can see, right? Like cutting. And so now we see those scars. But what about those quiet ones? In the church, they like to call it quiet sins, but it's not about sin. It's just simply about what is the reality of what you're going through. When you're unwilling to look at what is, you are doing harm just as much as another individual that you can point out and say, hey, that's a cutter. That's a burner, right? You're hurting yourself as much.
And even to what Leah's saying, she talked about avoidant, but that is also an attachment style. It's called avoidant attachment. And that's, those who have challenges with that struggle with intimacy, and sometimes they cheat to create this emotional distance, and we see it as emotionally unavailable or just inconsistent caregivers sort of growing up.
I think the other thing we have to kind of talk about or acknowledge, because last week, again, the conversation was about safe places. I was talking with a friend just 2 weeks ago, and I said, you know what I've realized is that I know how to create a safe place for another woman, but to create a space for a man, I have to learn how to do that because that's not something that I was taught. And I think that's another conversation that couples have to have, right? What does a safe place look like for you? What does my response, how does my response trigger you or make it feel like it's not a safe place? How do I come off to make you feel as though if you cry in front of me, I'm going to throw it in your face? Like those kind of questions, those kind of conversations, that vulnerability has to be there for a woman. And a woman has to say, like, I can talk to my best friend all day. I know how to handle her because I say we share emotions, we share experiences. I don't know what it's like for a man to cry, especially if you've never cried before, right?
Sometimes the men don't even know what a safe place for themselves is. You feel me? And so a lot of men need to, like, for real, really examine themselves and ask yourself the question, who am I, where am I, and what do I need? And you need to spend some time like just really sitting with that, because those questions ain't just easily answered in terms of finding, because if I don't know how to identify a safe place for myself, you definitely can't create it for me.
Right. Wow. Or you can't even identify if it's a safe spot for you. Terry, go ahead, man.
I mean, I'm just listening to, us talk about this, this stuff. And, this was mentioned, shows ago, it was mentioned in Baltimore. And I don't want to, because you got clinicians on there, you got folks, and we throwing around big words. And I think, sometimes we got to explain what that means. And as I was mentioning before, everything is not. Everything is not. Well, when people don't know the definition and they think they do, everything becomes. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
It does. So
if we're talking about trauma, what is trauma? What is intergenerational trauma? What is avoidant attachment, disorganized? What is ambivalent? All of that stuff. Those are things we need to be discussing. Trauma is what? Totally unusual experience that happens when someone where the nervous system and its capacity to process that event, gets overwhelmed. And that event get left behind in the brain unprocessed. And so when energy hits it, you have what you call what? You experience trauma symptoms, plain and symptoms. So everything we're talking about, remember, there's an event that happens in the nervous system and its capacity to process it becomes overwhelmed. And so now you grow, to be this grown man, and you got these pieces of that trauma left behind, unprocessed. It's unprocessed. Then you move into intergenerational trauma. Those are what? That's behavior that we pass on to our kids without us even knowing.
I want to share something with you, Terry. In fact, everybody here, right? And I think I'm going to shift it just a little bit as it pertains to pastors. Listen closely, right? Men. I'm not talking about pastors who are women. I'm talking about pastors who are men, because we're talking about men right now, right? That I actually believe that we have done the church organization, conferences, ministerials have done a great disservice to men who have had moral falls. Okay? I do. I can say the same thing about women, but I'm not going to speak about women with moral falls as pastors. I'm talking about men as moral falls as pastors. I'm going to share something with you all. I remember when things didn't go well at my conference almost 20 years ago with me. No one asked me. And up until this day, when I deal with pastors who are morally falling, but no one knows, but they're talking to me about it. Oh, you understand where I'm coming from? Mm-hmm. I recognize that a lot of stuff comes from different places. So many men in the ministry are bound to a behavior that they cannot keep. You understand where I'm coming from?
Expound on that for me.
I get it. You human. And I often say, Paul, I was talking with a dear friend of mine that is a PK, a pastor kid. And this is my thought. You go in, right? A normal human being, a young person, right? You're in college. You're doing what young people do with underdeveloped brains, right? And then you wind up getting a degree in religion, whatever, theology, whatever it may be.
Okay.
You're a human being who has been doing what young people do with underdeveloped brains and whose bodies have been enjoying certain physiological responses and reactions. And then as soon as you graduate, because a conference saw a glimmer of hope in you, said, hey, you better return back here after I invest in you. And they automatically put you all in pulpits underdeveloped as human beings.
Now we're talking.
You might be able to pastor. I mean, not
Is,
really pastor.
is that word again?
Preach.
Maybe have to preach.
You may be able to preach. That's why I had to pull it back, Sade.
Right.
You might be able to speak a good word and good, but you could have spoke a good word to all the women on the yard too, right?
Okay,
You could with linguistics.
Good.
But it does not mean that you have. Doesn't mean that you.
And now back to our show.
Well, that threw me totally off guard, Terry. I was in my groove, like what?
Hey, was that you?
That wasn't me. That was you.
Oh, it was me. Oh, my bad.
Lord help. But anyway, the point
It was apropos though.
is that you all have not gone through, and I believe you all should go through a measure of therapy. When I was going through my master's program as a clinical social worker, we had to do our own internal work first before we were able to be released to the people.
Yes.
You all have no finding anything to do your own internal work, and then we release you in a leadership role where people think that you are so close to God, and you might not be. Now, I'm not saying this about you per se, Paul.
Oh, you hold on.
Human behavior.
Listen, anybody got no hell to put me in or no heaven to put me in, right?
I'm just, you know what I'm saying? I'm not talking directly at you. I'm just speaking on the topic that we're dealing with human behavior, and you all are human beings that have not been put into a position where accountability is something that you all have to learn, where looking introspectively and dealing with some of the things that you are aware of that you've been avoiding or that you're still engaging in that you're aware of and your conferences are aware of.
You gotta preach this thing, Leah.
Right? And so it's a problem that needs to actually be rectified for the generations to come. So, Paul, I nominate you as the advocate.
No.
Let me say this, Paul. Let me say this. Okay, and to jump on what some of Leah was saying, because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I find it hard and difficult for me to believe that people who are put in the positions that you are put in don't have an ethics class, a confidentiality class, none of that. That makes no sense to me. That makes no sense to me. None. Because I have seen people end up in sermons. I have seen and heard, pastors talking, well, let me tell you what's going on. I'm like, huh? Well, I'm telling you because you're therapist. That did they want you to tell me that? What'd you share this information for? You guys need to have that. And like Leah said, y'all are thrust out there in the community and don't even know how to keep your mouths. You pillow talking with your wife going back telling everybody else.
Right.
But, Terry, as you're saying that, I'm in this doctoral track right now, and we're learning about policies and procedures. And so one of the classes that I had to take and another one I'm in right now, we have to literally create curriculums, right? And so as you're talking about that, Terry, I'm thinking like, we could create a curriculum and present it to the universities that speak on this very thing that we're talking about and actually teach an ethics class or teach a class just about confidentiality.
Right.
I don't know that it's high on their totem pole, but I think it's up to us to bring awareness, right? And so,
but I think I'm sorry, Mina.
No, go ahead.
Because I think the issue is kind of what the slip up Leah, right? How we assume that because you have the education, you can pastor,
right?
You can preach, and you learn homiletics, you learn all of these things. But when do you learn how to say to yourself, "I'm not okay to lead the sheep because I'm a wolf myself"?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like when do you sit down and have time and space to sit and identify, like, you know what, it's not working, right? The call may be there and you may have responded to the call, but maybe there's some work that needs to be done with you. And
but were you chosen?
My question to you, Paul, is as a pastor, right, who has traversed this rugged land, when does all come together and say we need to push for changes in policies, we need to push for changes in ethics, because if we keep doing this, we're going to have the same continual cycle of moral values not really lining up with what people are assigned to do, that continue to hurt people in the church.
Here it is, because after we go here, I want to go back to leadership in homes as men. Okay, after we go here.
But before you go there, dealing with what we call cognitive dissonance.
That part.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Explain it, Leah.
Here you go. I'm gonna break it down real proper. Who you know you are for real versus who the church is telling you need to stand up in the pulpit and fake like.
That's it.
That's what cognitive dissonance is,
Right.
right?
So
I
some
get
of
up.
these pastors suffer from imposter syndrome.
Oh, we sure do.
What is that? Give you a definition.
You feel you ain't supposed to be there.
Right. Or the position is too great for you.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so
I think all of us go through that at a certain point in time.
Sure,
Right.
sure. But so based on what you just said, Sade, and then jumping back to what you said, Leah, just
That's
now.
why I got my doctorate quest.
One of the things that I recognize is that when I got fired almost 20 years ago, I want you to hear this. I went to a apostolic pastor who had his doctorate and who counseled me and Wendy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
He was surprised. He was surprised when I had to sit down and tell him what happened. He was surprised that I was sitting in that chair. Because what he was saying was, you shouldn't be in this chair. I mean, the truth of the matter is what you did doesn't deserve for you to be in this chair. I'm wondering if the people you worked with, or that you're working with, understood how to take care of this without there being without anyone even knowing. Are you understand where I'm coming from? That was the first thing he said. Second of all, he gave me an example of one of his associate pastors that fell. I'm talking about, when I mean sexual, I'm talking about physical. Okay, we're not talking about online stuff. We're talking about physical.
Mm-hmm.
He said, it is our policy. There we go, right? Listen to this. He said, it is our policy that we sit with him. Okay, that's what he said to me. We sit with the other party and we try to figure out how to have both work together or stay together in the same church still. If not, we transfer or so and so. But before we do anything, this is what he said. We realized that this man is broken and he could have broken someone else. You understand where I'm coming from? And when he explained that to me, I want you to know that he's explaining that this was a policy. A policy that you just don't throw anybody away, right? You just don't kick them to the curb, because your policy says that if you mess up, you gotta go. Your policy says that if you get pregnant, you're gone. Your all this policy that has no spirituality in there. So when you ask that question, Sade, is there something set up? I know this. There was a P4 or P2 test. I don't remember, because it was nearly 30 years ago, that I had to take before I went into seminary. That's a cognitive whatever test we had to take. That had nothing to do with morals. It had nothing to do with asking the questions, what would you do? And in fact, I'm going to say this, and so let it be. I remember as a ministerial director, as a team, we sat down together when I first got on this team. And I asked the question, if an individual should fall, if an individual should have a moral fall, what do we do? And it was 5 of us, and the 4 other individuals said right then and there, they gotta go. I asked the other one, they gotta go. They gotta go. They got 4 of them. I remember where we were. Said they've gotta go. And I said to them, this is not for me. That's what I said.
So I think what we're looking at is redemption versus rejection.
Yes.
There we go, sis. And I'm going to say this. Therapy, right, is not for when they fall or when we fall. Therapy is...
It's prevention. It's that early intervention that needs to take place.
I learned this in weeks here. I learned that here, that this thing is preventive. So when a pastor calls me and says, yo, dude, I've been with this young lady for like a year now. I've never talked to a pastor who was going through something that said that they enjoyed being where they were. Not one.
Well, here's my thing that I have issue with, right? When we're looking at this, situation of an individual, quote unquote, falling from grace, right? Having a moral issue. The conference, right, doesn't treat people equitably. Some people treat it differently, and they are moved around as a means of covering up
protection.
Right?
Protection.
And it is familial ties. Like, I get so sick. And for those that's looking, I would say majority or all of us are a part of a particular religious affiliation. And in that, you will often hear, I am 4th generation, I'm 5th, I'm 7th, I'm 1000th generation in this thing.
1000th. Jesus is my great grandfather.
Listen, which means absolutely nothing other than it is a way to create a caste level society where some are received and others are marginalized.
It's a fact. That's a fact.
Right. And so if you are an individual who has incurred any, as I talked about, like that early childhood stuff, right? Trauma. And again, you're right, Ali had put on here, right? There's this thing when we kind of go through our training. So I'm trained and specialized in the area of trauma. And we often say, if everything is trauma, then there is no trauma. So we have to kind of get that normalized. But when you're looking at this thing, the marginalization of certain individuals that are not in the fold, if you will, they're not the favored in this particular thing, that marginalization will bring up old feelings of rejection, potentially feeling unworthy. And so that naming what you truly feel in that moment is very important for your mental health. Because as a man, if you have to sit there and hold this thing in and still try to present as, right, this big bad dude, I often say man up equal man down. So when you don't deal with your emotions, it's going to cripple you and debilitate you over time.
Gotcha.
And
you have to name it. Go ahead, Sade.
Another thing we have to look at is how systematically, especially in the Black church, how the pastor has been used as he's put on this pedestal. Even in slavery times, the pastor was the mouth of master, right? Whatever master said, the pastor said, and it was the Bible. It was truth.
Yeah.
We do such a disservice of putting you, pastor, above me instead of letting you be right here with me. And if I can say, yo, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with X, Y, or Z, or this is a problem for me, how can I not believe that my pastor doesn't experience the same thing? How do I not give grace, right? Because here's the thing. I'm single, and let's say I'm out here doing whatever I want to do. Nobody's looking at Sade saying, oh, well, I heard she was out there. I mean, some people may. That's between you and Jesus. But if a pastor does it, whether he's single, there are single pastors who are struggling because they're like, I just want to date. I just want to be able to go out.
I just want to hang.
But here's the thing, though, Sade, you're not in a position, though, where you are leading the people into the direction of holiness, right? So I don't want for us to get to a place where, how can I say this? We're human, right? We're born in sin. We're shaped in iniquity, true. But this is something I say as a clinician. I never want to show up as a hypocrite. So I never say to my clients anything that I'm unwilling to do. Right? I don't do it. It ain't gonna come out my mouth if I know I'm already struggling with it.
I got you.
So it's very difficult when you're leading people into the word of God, which is to be seen, revered, it's to be holy, all of those things. And then we're saying, hey, I know you struggling, but that's what I'm talking about with that cognitive dissonance. I feel like a hypocrite because I really know deep down inside what's going on. But I'm up here preaching the word and trying to center people to Christ.
Gotcha.
I think that pastors should, if they're going and struggling, sit down for a minute.
Yes.
Give
sit down. It's all right. You're human.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And so let me say this too. It's something that they call in therapy, or what we say in therapy is, a therapist can only go as far as they've been or they're willing to take you.
Okay.
So I can't help you if I get to a point where I've never been there before, I don't understand this or whatever, and coming in as a young pastor, having to flock a whole bunch of people, they're coming with issues. You don't have nothing. You have no clue. No clue on how to handle. And you're saying things like, I'm going to pray for you. Is that all you got for me? Is prayer? Again, what do I say all the time about practicing outside of your documentable competencies? Pastors need to know their strengths and they need to play to those. And then if this is not in my wheelhouse, out of my area of expertise, let me find out in this church, or let me find out somebody who I can refer you to.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. Stop trying to think that you are all things to all people, because a good pastor, hey, referring somebody, that's strength. Not is weakness.
Okay, so let's we hit the 10-minute mark. So let's land the plane on a couple of things. Let's come out of pastorship for a second. Let's go into leadership. All right. And one of the reasons why what you smiling for, Sade? I can't switch up on you. You're not ready to move yet.
I'm smiling because I'm happy.
Okay. Okay. It's the contrast of the white teeth and the red. It's the contrast. All right, here we go. Lee, I know you're not. Okay, here we go. Okay.
I'm just listening.
Okay, so here we go. Men are flawed leaders. Mm-hmm. And what I've heard tonight is that there's so many different reasons. And thank you, Ali, for really just jump-starting us this evening. But so many of us are in a space where we want to be better. We want to do better. And there are many who don't want to do better, don't want to be better. They're good where they are. But I find that part of mental health for men is being able, that's why Mina, I love the word identification, like you said earlier. I want to be able to identify where I am, what I'm doing, what am I lacking? How can I get where I need? Maybe I need to change my diet. Maybe I need to do this thing differently. But what I heard tonight is that there's really no excuse for not building yourself as a man. There's also no excuse for not trying to be better. The issue for me, and I think for many of us as men, is we're trying to do this thing without knowledge, without help, without knowledge, and without accountability. How do we get there? So as we land the plane, right, I'm going to start with our ladies first, right? I'm going to ask you ladies, from the outside looking in, and I'm just going by in that mindset, from the outside looking in, or for those who are watching with us, you may want to probably jot it down and we'll put it up also. How can a man be accountable, right, when it comes to his mental health?
Be willing to look at it and get honest, because you're playing with yourself. You're not playing with nobody else. You're playing with you.
Okay, no pun intended, no pun intended.
That part.
I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, you are playing with yourself. You're
Oh,
playing with
my
absolutely nobody else, right?
God. Leah.
And you're doing damage
I like that.
to yourself and others that rely on you. You're talking about leadership.
Okay, so say it again.
You-
So say it
you
again
could
before
do
you meet me in the green.
damage.
Say it again before you meet me in the green room. No. Don't say anything, Quest. We're going around the clock. Say it again. Just say it again, Leo. Your thoughts
Get
again.
honest. Get honest. You are playing with yourself and not the other people that you're trying to fool.
I got you.
And as you continue to play this game
Yeah.
as if nothing is going on, and you know that it is,
Mm-hmm.
do great harm to yourself as well as those that are around you in your sphere of influence.
Gotcha. Meet us in the green room. Meet us in the green room. Mina?
So let's see. Maybe choosing a circle that allows for vulnerability. Kind of, I think a man becomes accountable when he allows people in his life that check him in love, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is not mistaking privacy for isolation, but welcoming brothers, mentors, elders. There's a saying, and I've seen it so much on social media that I literally want to get the shirt, and all it says is "You good?" ? Right?
Wow. Nice.
Not settling for "I'm fine," but admitting I don't know and not feeling weak because you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when somebody says you're good and the person goes, "I'm fine." Usually when we ask if you're good is because we know you're not. So we're asking just to confirmation. And so I think sometimes when someone says, "Yeah, I'm cool, I'm good," we just leave it there. We don't dig. But I think that that's where that we want to respect their privacy, so we don't dig, but we got to dig.
I got you.
So,
The first thing you said really was surrounding yourself.
yes.
Surrounding yourself. I like that. Meet us in the green room. Green room.
See you all.
Bye.
Sade, what are your thoughts, girl?
So for me, I think one thing that's vital and important is for men to surround themselves with men they want to be like. Right? Like if you know I want to be a good husband, I want to be a good father, I want to be a faithful husband, I want to be a faithful father. You can't hang around men who cheat. Like the two don't go together. So I think you, like Mina said, having a circle that you can be vulnerable with, but also a circle that's going to hold your feet to the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And say, this is what you said you wanted. This is what you said you wanted to, have for yourself. And I think being willing to give grace also means that you have to be willing to accept that sometimes you have to drop pride, drop ego, and say that I'm not okay. And whomever you say that to, knowing that that's a safe place for that to be said.
Got you. Hey, lady, I'll meet you in the green room.
Bye.
Okay. Ali, man, first of all, thanks again, man. Thank you.
Always
Appreciate your time. I definitely appreciate your time. Well, maybe I'm going to switch it up in a little bit and say, for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
How I'm going to put it this way, as a coach, as a counselor, as a coach, what advice would you give a man who wants to live a holier life or a positive life as it pertains to family and his community, which means he can be single and he wants to live right. Okay, it doesn't have to be just holy. What kind of advice would you give a young person or a man in general?
Well, I'll be honest. A lot of it has been said, but I'll say it my way.
Sure.
Right? So I shameless plug. I wrote a book for Ben, and I talk about a lot of this in that book. right? And so there are a lot of things that need to be done, but I'll just share a couple. One, the word honest was brought up.
Mm.
And often what I tell guys is to share with me what does, and I do this in air quotes, what does successful living look like to you holistically? So what kind of man do you want to be? How do you want, when your name is brought up, what are some of the adjectives that go behind that? Is it integrity? Is it faithfulness? Is it, I'm a man of my, what is it that you want? What does successful living look like to you? Because you got to know that first, because if not, you're grasping at straws and you just following the latest trends, and that could end you up anywhere, right? Once you've determined that, you need to get in a space that I call shadowing your future. And Sade talked about it. If I know I want to be successful in a particular area, let's say I want to be financially literate and I want to get my money right. There are 4 things that I need to do. There needs to be some level of observation, training, execution, and feedback.
Okay.
I need to be able to do that with somebody who is already living my future.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to observe that person. That person needs to be willing to give me some hands-on training. Hey, do this, do that as I look over your shoulder, whatever that looks like. And then at some point, I'm able to go off and be great and execute. But I still need that person to be able to give me feedback. And that's where the accountability comes in, right?
Yeah.
So understanding, first of all, what is the path you want to take? What's the blueprint look like? What's the ideal look like? And being able to shadow your future in that area are 2 things that are, and you asked for me.
Yeah.
Those are 2 things that I had to do.
I understand.
Because if I did not do them, I would not be married today. I would not be the greatest guy, period. Let's forget about marriage. I just would not be a man of integrity.
Yeah.
Like I would just be doing whatever I felt like doing. So those are 2 things that I had to do. And then I'll take it a step further. Once you've gone through that,
yes,
we're talking about building community and we're talking about creating spaces. Once you've gone through that, you got to be the person that somebody else can shadow.
Got you. Hey, listen, I don't need you to be in the green room. Get out of here, man. We'll talk again soon.
Good to see you, man. Always a pleasure.
Oh, man. Thank you, man. Thank you. Uncle Terry?
Itching for a scratch.
I don't know. What's the question? It changed. Which one do I have?
Well, no, really, I think you said it before. I mean, really, I think you said it before. I think a lot of us as men, and we can close off here, a lot of us as men, I think we, sometimes we are misdiagnosed. I do get what you said after we went back at it and said, what if it's not what it is? You understand what I'm coming? It's not what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, what if we just need to recognize this who we are? Yeah. And how we just need to deal with what we want to see, how we want to see our own lives turn out to be.
Yeah.
I do think there's a lot of excuses comes about, as you said, we make a lot of excuses, but I do also recognize that to be a successful man in our community, in our churches, as a leader in our homes or in our communities, in our relationships, I think we need to be cognizant. I do believe we need to be cognizant of who we are and what we want in our lives. That's the basic. Go ahead.
So I got 2 things. Okay. I think we need to make gradual changes because this ain't gonna happen overnight. You see what I'm saying? Because it didn't happen overnight. Okay. And so when we're talking about, change is more gradual, okay, than dramatic. Everybody agree on that, right? Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about being great men and what do we want, think of a problem that you have. Okay, you don't even have to share that with me. Just think of a problem you have right now. Okay, now, what behaviors will we see you doing if the problem that you thought about was less intense or didn't exist at all? What behaviors will we see you doing if the problem you have was less intense or didn't exist at all?
Mm.
You know what you need to do? You need to start practicing those behaviors right now if you want to kickstart that change process.
Start practicing.
You need to start practicing that now. Here's another thing I give my clients is taking hold of your mind. Okay, taking hold of your mind. Now, taking hold of your mind means practice putting and directing your mind where you want it to be. Okay, we got a whole lot of mental windows. I call them apps to our thoughts, our emotions, and bodily sensations, as well as what? Windows to each of our senses in the environment around us. You ever look on somebody's computer and they got all these windows open? They got all of these windows are open. Open the window or the app of your choosing.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? Everybody was saying, mentor, get with guys who you look at. Open that app. Okay? That's what you need to do. Open that window. Look through it while keeping all of these other windows shut.
Gotcha.
Look through that window. And guess what? If another window blows open, gently close it and put your mind right back to where it was. We have to take control of our minds.
Gotcha.
We have to make change.
No excuses.
That's my view.
Yeah, I'll meet you in the green room, Doc. I'll meet you in the green room. Listen, man, 2 weeks in a row, man. This thing is crazy. Quest, it's good to see you. I know you're a little bit busy today, but definitely, man.
Yeah, man.
It was just a
at that
pleasure.
plug for a little bit. Well, we back.
Listen, man, I just want you to know that I feel good because I'm clear. I got my little upgrade.
Yep,
So
yep.
I'm ready to roll. And listen, man, I just want to be clear that these unscripted conversations should be happening in our communities, in our homes, and at churches. Hey, everyone, be blessed. Continue to walk with God. We'll see y'all again next week.